Miss Anna had not moved. She stood between the tables with the fixed expression of someone who had said something cutting and was waiting for the appropriate devastation to follow. When it did not, her expression sharpened. Mr. Leon. The fan came up. Serving a duke does not make one a duke. A sound. A single, distinct sound, glass meeting table with more force than strictly necessary. Not violent. Deliberate. Olive turned. Cyrene was rubbing one ear with the studied calm of a woman listening to something very faint. A mouse, she said, to no one in particular. There's a sound like a mouse, Olive. He stared at her. She had called him Olive. Not Olivio, the title she had used since they met, slightly formal, worn smooth by repetition, but Olive. His actual name, short and plain, in her voice, said as though it had always been hers to use. He would think about that later. He thought about it now, briefly, and then returned his attention to the scene in front of him. Squeak, squeak, Cyrene continued, in a tone of mild academic interest, peering at a point near Miss Anna's hem. Is there one passing by? Miss Anna looked down. Her face changed. She gathered her skirts and left the restaurant at a pace that was not quite running and was not quite dignified, and the door swung shut behind her with a sound like punctuation. Olive let out a slow breath. I'm sorry, he said. Why? Cyrene tilted her wine glass. She appeared on her own. That wasn't your fault, Olivio. She considered the word she had just used and gave nothing away about having noticed it. Sit down. The food is getting cold. He sat. The corner of his mouth rose without his permission, and he let it. Dinner continued. The restaurant had the grace to let it. The interrupted evening reassembled itself around the food and the wine and the particular quality of Cyrene's company, which Olive had long since accepted was irreplaceable. She ate with the focused appreciation of someone who took good food seriously and was not going to let the evening's interruption interfere with that. She asked about the sauce on the fish with the interest of someone cataloging techniques. She refilled her own glass without ceremony. Olive watched her and felt the small box in his jacket pocket and thought about timing. Then the waiter arrived with the dessert. The plate was set in front of Cyrene, a heart-shaped chocolate cake, because she loved chocolate, which Olive knew because he paid attention, had always paid attention, had been paying attention since the first afternoon he'd walked into her shop and she had handed him the wrong order and corrected it before he could speak. On top of the cake, in the center, where the waiter had placed it exactly as arranged, the ring. Amethyst. A deep, clear violet, chosen because it matched her eyes, which Olive had spent a considerable amount of time looking at over the past year. The waiter bowed and withdrew. Cyrene looked at the cake. Then leaned forward, very slightly, with the expression of someone whose eyes have reported something unexpected and who is waiting for a second opinion from their other senses. Olive, she whispered. He leaned in to hear her. Their faces were closer than the table's width should have allowed, and her eyes, when they met his, were very wide. This restaurant, she said, with great seriousness, has lost its mind. Has it? There is jewelry in my dessert. I see that. Where is there a restaurant that serves rings? She reached out and picked it up with both hands, carefully, examining it with the precise focus of someone whose profession involved assessing valuable things. The amethyst caught the candlelight. The setting is excellent. The stone is high quality. The cut is, she turned it. This is expensive. This is very expensive. Someone has lost this. No one has lost it. She looked at him. It's yours, he said. I chose it for you. What? It's your ring, Cyrene. She blinked. Once, slowly, the way she did when something had surprised her and she was deciding how to respond. Her face, which was usually composed in the particular way of someone who had learned early not to show too much, had gone slightly off balance. Olive reached across the table and took her hand, the one holding the ring, gently. "Will you marry me?" The words came out steadier than he'd expected. He had practiced them. He had practiced them in his room and in the corridor and in the carriage on the way here, and they had sounded different every time, and now they were simply out in the air between them and there was nothing left to do but wait. Cyrene's face had gone the color of something warm. She was not looking at him. She was looking at the ring, at his hand over hers, at the middle distance, at everything that was not his face. "Alithio," she started. "Cyrene, the door." Miss Anna returned, with the manager 2 steps behind her and the expression of someone who had gone to find reinforcements. "I told him," she announced, with the vindication of someone who has been doubted and has now been proven correct. "A mouse." "I said so." Olive stood. He placed himself between their table and Miss Anna with the precise, quiet movement of someone who does not need to be large to occupy space effectively. She stopped walking. The manager stopped beside her. "What is this?" Olive said. "Earlier your companion," she gestured past him. "My girlfriend," Olive said. "I said so clearly." "Yes, that." Her chin came up. "You announce it so openly? That you're with a man?" The restaurant had gone quiet in the way of a room that is paying attention while pretending not to. Something happened in Olive's chest. Not heat, the opposite. A cold, settling clarity of the kind that arrived when he had stopped being patient and had no intention of pretending otherwise. He stepped forward. Miss Anna stepped back. "Miss Anna." His voice was even. Quiet. The specific quiet of something that didn't need volume. "If you lack the capacity to think before you speak, I would suggest returning to your estate, sitting down, and troubling no one until that capacity develops." Her mouth opened. "Manager." He didn't look away from her. "Does this establishment permit guests to repeatedly intrude on other tables? We sincerely apologize." The manager was already moving. "Miss, if you would, Mr. Leon. You will apologize to me at once. The lady who has repeatedly interrupted my evening should apologize to my companion," Olive said. "Until that happens, I have nothing to say to her." Miss Anna drew herself up, opened her mouth, and then, apparently finding nothing sufficient, began to sway dramatically. The manager caught her with the resigned efficiency of a man who had witnessed this technique before, and steered her toward the door, and Miss Anna, eyes very slightly open, watched Cyrene all the way out. The door closed. Olive turned back to the table. "She was watching the whole time," Cyrene said. Her expression was somewhere between disgusted and entertained. All the way to the door. Through her supposedly closed eyes. "I noticed." Theatrical. Deeply. He sat down. "I'm sorry. I should have reserved the whole room." "Olive." She said his name again, and this time he thought she might not have noticed she'd done it. "Stop apologizing for things that aren't your fault." She turned the ring over in her fingers. Set it down beside the cake. Then she looked at him for a moment, really looked, the direct, unhurried assessment she gave things she was trying to understand, and stood up. "Cyrene?" She placed the ring in his hand. Set it there, deliberately, and then folded his fingers over it. He went very still. "I can't," she said. The indifference in her voice was careful, the kind of careful that meant it was costing her something. "I'm a commoner. I dress like a man. I'm not a woman in any way this world considers acceptable, and every time you're seen with me, you'll end up in situations like tonight. Worse situations." She looked at him steadily. "You'll keep getting into trouble. And it'll be because of me." "Cyrene, I'm the one who minds," she said, before he could finish. "Not you. I know you don't mind." "I mind." Something shifted in her face, briefly. I mind for you. She reached out and touched his face, palm to his cheek, the way she'd never done before, brief and final, and then stood up straight. Thank you, she said, for all of it. She stood on her toes and pressed her lips to his forehead, soft and quick. Then she turned. Olive's hand caught her wrist. Cyrene. She looked at it. His hand. Her wrist. The few inches between their bodies that felt entirely wrong. Then, slowly, she drew her hand back. Don't, she said. Not cold, something more complicated than cold. If you hold on, I'll leave. Not just tonight. I'll leave and I'm good at disappearing. She looked at him directly. I've done it before. You know I have. He did know. She had told him, once, obliquely, and he had filed it away under things she carries that she has not yet put down. He let go. She turned and walked to the door and did not look back, and the door swung closed behind her, and Olive stood in the restaurant with her ring in his closed fist and watched the empty space where she had been. The distance between his hand and hers, at the last moment, had been perhaps 4 centimeters. It felt like a country.